I have sort of a new one today. I've got a long-term family friend who's getting married up in Annapolis, so the weather ended up being in my favor, and I think I'm going to actually sail the boat up and take it to the wedding, park it in downtown Annapolis, and go to this wedding, which is at the Annapolis Yacht Club. So I'm very excited about that. I brought my suit and everything to get up there. In the forecast right now, we have 15 to 20 knots of wind roughly, so I'm gonna go ahead and probably reef the main before we even get out there, just before we leave the dock at all, just to be totally safe there. It looked like yesterday that the forecast was coming from the north, so in that case we would have had to tack right to left, basically across the channel. This is an 18-mile trip if you don't have to tack, if you go straight line. Unfortunately, if the wind was coming from the north, which I think it will, we will probably have to tack, which makes the trip more like 24, 25 nautical miles. So we are getting an early start. It's 6 a.m. right now, and we should be kicking off pretty shortly. However, the wind did shift a little bit more in our favor this morning. It's coming more from the east, and it's possible that I'll be able to do one tack over to the eastern side of the bay and then do one long starboard tack all the way into the channel to get to Annapolis Harbor, which would be an amazing outcome. Unfortunately, on the way back on Sunday, looks like we have no wind in the forecast. We'll deal with that when we come to it, but I do have extra gas in case it's just a motor job. But yeah, life's gonna get busy in the next couple of months here, so any opportunity I have to take the boat out and go for a trip, I'm gonna take it. The other factor that makes me hope that we get to do a starboard tack all the way across the bay is that the waves are about 1.5 to 2 feet and they're coming directly from the north, in which case we're just gonna be sort of beating to windward, beating into the waves. That's really my least favorite type of sail. But the wind is pretty confident today, so we should be able to maintain a pretty decent boat speed even though the waves are working against us. I rigged up this dock line to be sort of my perpendicular to the waves hanging system. You think about this, the boat's gonna be heeling right and left. So this needs to be able to slide a little bit. I couldn't fit it on this or else I would have just used that to have it, pivot on that. So I rigged up a perpendicular hanger system here, which should be great. Got a little hitch right there. There we go. We have our first reefing point ready. Just gotta prep the lines here to provide the corresponding tension to the back of the sail. And the halyard, as always, will be supplying the tension to the top of the sail. We definitely have a little bit of wave action here. Should be pretty fun out there. It's definitely blowing pretty good here. I would guess it's easily 15 right now. And the waves are pretty big. I put away the expensive camera because there's gonna be too much jostling, I think, for this first leg of the trip. The wind angle is not great. I would love to get some distance to the right side of the bay so I can have an easier angle relative to the winds on the Annapolis coast. Woo! Got sprayed! Aye! Just an update on my hanger system, seems to be working pretty well. I should put on my life jacket, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Our speed is atrocious. We're hitting 4.5 knots. I've got the motor on full throttle right now. Into the wind, into the waves. This is what these Cape Dories were built for. Well, I just hit a crab pot. I was taking the jib out, and when I wasn't watching the water, I was looking at the jib, and I hit a crab pot and completely just tangled up, stopped the motor instantly. It was pretty tangled. I had to jump in the water and cut it out with this kitchen knife. So the boat's kind of a mess right now. When we were doing that, we were drifting into like this shoal area to the right. So I had to get in there and do that fast. I almost jumped in with my life vest on too, which would have caused the CO2 cartridge to inflate it. So that was a pirate experience there. I was in the water, like on the ladder, trying to see these waves. It's hard to see how big they are, but I was in the water trying to cut the end off the motor, and these waves were lifting and dropping me like maybe 5-6 feet. Sorry, crab pot guy, that was my bad. All right, now let's get some jib up and start moving a little bit here. Man, we are just not making a lot of progress windward. I've got the motor on and the jib out a little bit, but we are stuffing, look at the bows completely wet. Whoa! We're stuffing it into these waves. This is gonna take me longer than I thought, I think, to get there. So we're not really going anywhere. We're actually getting blown further away from Annapolis right now. So the wind has calmed down a little bit, the waves have calmed down a tiny bit, and it's gonna get better from here on out. So what I'm gonna do is raise the main right now. I think we need a little bit more sail power and a little bit more speed to just kind of point the boat correctly. If we were going 6 knots or so, then the rudder wouldn't have any trouble steering. I think that's what's happening right now. The rudder's just not getting enough force on the boat relative to the waves to steer it properly with the autopilot. Then I can just sit back here and hand steer if that doesn't work. All right, now we're flying. We're going like 6 knots on the sails. I turned the motor off. I need to give it a break, and also I used quite a bit of fuel there. I literally could not get the boat staying turned into the wind. I could not keep the boat turned into the wind to raise the main. So I swung the boom out over the port side of the boat. So the boom angle was not into the wind, but the bow was still out of the wind. But the bow was still, like if I couldn't have raised it when if the traveler was centered. So that was extreme. Pretty fun. I gotta tighten up this, I didn't tighten, I changed reef points too. I went to the lower reef, so I need to actually tighten this up. Winch this down, because look at how loose that is. Okay, tightened up that sail. We're double reefed on a pretty tight tack here. We are actually making progress now. Let's take a look at our course here. We are moving towards Annapolis. Hooray. This is destroyed down here. But look, my system, my clothesline system is great. Oh, the hell was that? Just a nice puff. Look how heeled over we are. Burying some rail there. Burying a little rail. On this next tack. So the waves are a lot less in our favor on this next tack when I do a tack to port. So what I might do is start with a less aggressive angle off the wind and kind of steer up into it, like 5 degrees more windward, 10 degrees more windward until we're at as close tack as possible, just so the waves don't get us. We need to build up some serious momentum to combat the waves that we're seeing right here, but that's a good method to deal with that. Beautiful sun. Sun's coming out. I got a little calm things down. I can see the Bay Bridge way up there. We're making progress, even though that's the marina, like right there. So yeah, the waves have really calmed down up here. I think I'm gonna do 20 more minutes in this direction and then flip around and see if we can starboard tack. The tack angle still isn't quite there. The wind is, I was expecting the wind to shift more to the east, and it really just hasn't yet, which makes my tack angle kind of impossible. So yeah, I'm still motoring. That's a huge bummer. But lesson learned. I really underestimated the impact of the surf. Definitely, when we turn down the channel, we'll be fine, and we'll be, speeding to windward is awful. I don't know why I do these things. Yeah, beating to windward's the worst. We had a pretty favorable wind change, and now we are on a nice starboard tack. I'm not making a perfect angle to Annapolis, but it's good enough to work. So I'm gonna be doing this here on out, sailing into Annapolis. So we rounded the Thomas Point Lighthouse, and then also that little sandbar that's right after it, and I've never been so happy to be not beating to windward anymore. We're still on for sure a starboard tack, but it's much more of a beam reach. We have a much better angle with the wind, because that was driving me nuts. That took way longer than it should have. We're going 3 knots, but I'll take it, because the wind died a little. All right, I have made it safely to the Annapolis. Yeah, that took way longer than I thought. That took, so it's what, 3? It's 2 p.m. right now. So that took me from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Whatever that math is. Well, it's day 2. Had a lot of fun at the welcome party last night, but still on the dock here in Annapolis. I'm gonna go for a quick run, probably, and sweat these beers out. I would say this location is not. I prefer the mooring ball location to on the dock generally. If you can see the rear of the boat's like pitching forward and back. I think that's like the angle, because I'm not always, on the mooring ball you swing into the plane of the wind, like into the direction of the wind, and that always comes over the bow, and the bow's better at handling the waves. And the bow is better at handling that relative to like causing the boat to pitch up and down, like the bow cuts through it better. So last night, the waves are coming this way into the stern, and it was causing this just like kind of up and down, hopping, and then forward and back pitching, which made sleeping a little bit more annoying. But I did end up getting a pretty good sleep after a while. Also helps that I was exhausted from leaving the prior day at 6 a.m. and battling all those waves. So it's the morning after the wedding, bit of a slow wake up. I had a friend pull me out of bed at 1 a.m. and bring me back to bars. So we're on our way back. Wind looks pretty light today, maybe oscillating between 2 and 8 or 10 knots coming from the west. So we might be able to do a little bit of a beam reach here on the way home, but it's probably going to be primarily a motor day, which is unfortunate. It's about 6:45 right now. So early start. I'm going to make a good effort to avoid these crab pots on the way home, because I do not want to be, the last thing I want to do right now is jump into the water. Pretty gorgeous looking morning though. The sea is very flat, as you can see. I haven't even really passed a boat since Annapolis. Everyone's probably sleeping in. There's definitely a little bit of wind over our beam, over the starboard side. So I'm gonna go ahead and raise the main and see if we can get a little bit of assistance from the wind here. All right, we got the main up. Coming back to life here. Doing a little sailing today. Let's pull out some jib. All right, it's not so bad. Got both sails out 100%. We're doing about 3.7 knots with there's the motors on, but there's just a little bit of motor, so we're kind of motor sailing. I'll take it. I really thought the wind was going to be 0. This time of year, it's really, the wind forecast gets a lot squirrelier, and there's just a lot of competing low pressure. Like yesterday, for example, we went out sailing for a little bit. There are 3 competing low pressure systems that were causing the wind to be very chaotic and unpredictable. It's coming out of the west for a couple seconds, and then the next minute it'd be coming out of the east. The waves were sort of bathtubby, like up and down, like this, versus very consistent one direction. It's just the time of the summer. It's mid-July. It tends to be like this. Moving about 4 knots, not too bad. We're coming up on the Thomas Point Lighthouse. I just turned the motor off. I'm not sure if we're gonna settle at around 4 knots, but maybe more like 3.5. But we were doing almost 6 there with just a little bit of throttle. So yeah, more wind than I thought. Good. So we're doing almost 4 knots on the sails here. So wind picked up a little bit. That's great news. We're rounding the Thomas Point Lighthouse right now, which again, there's like no boats out. But yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by this wind. I give it a B minus. Exceeds expectations. Wait, B plus. Exceeds expectations. But not outstanding. Coming up on some topwater fish action. Disappointing show of wildlife this summer in general. I haven't seen any dolphins, no sea turtles. Most stuff I saw was the rays on that trip to Tillman Island a couple weeks ago. There's some proof we're sailing. Some proof. Some real comfy sailing here, actually. This is great. I am afraid the sun is going to come out. See, it's behind those clouds right now up there. I'm afraid that the sun is going to come out and kill the wind. That happens a lot in the summer. So there's like wind in the morning for a couple of hours. And then as soon as the sun comes out, the land warms up and it relieves the temperature difference between the water and the land, and that's what's creating the wind in a lot of cases. So we'll see if that happens, but I think I'll be back. I mean, if we're traveling at 4 knots, we have maybe 8 or 10 nautical miles to go. So I think I'll be there before the sun is really at a powerful level, before kind of high noon time. This really looks like the opening to The Simpsons. I really wish I'd gotten footage of myself cutting the crab pot off the motor, so I can describe what I did. So basically, I had to put this down. The line was wrapped around the prop and the lower unit, and it was like wrapped all the way to the buoy. So it was really kind of tightly wrapped in there. So I had to drop this down, jump in the water, hold on to this, use a kitchen knife to like saw the crab pot line off the prop there. That's probably scratched and shit, so I might have to repaint that now, just so it doesn't corrode. All that in 3-foot waves up and down, so we were probably traversing 6 feet or something up and down at times. And then also the stern was kind of like bump and grinding in the surf. But it was really hard to find a point of leverage. I eventually found like a knot where I could cut it off, just like cut the line off itself. I didn't cut it off the engine, I cut it away from itself. And then I unwrapped the rest of the line off the engine once I removed the buoy from the crab trap. Well, the sun is coming out. It's gonna be a pretty bright day. Hope it doesn't kill the wind. Very cool looking clouds today. Well, unfortunately, exactly what I thought was gonna happen did happen. The sun rose. It's heating up the land. It's causing the wind to die. We've slowed to a crawl here. We're going to be 1 or 2 knots. And I'm probably gonna have to turn on the motor, unfortunately, just because, I got stuff to do later today. Work on the house. All right, let's do it. Now we're motoring at 6.5 knots. So I'm gonna do a little bit of bow riding here on this comfy chair I got from West Marine. And my wife got it. Credit to her. Looks like we have another minefield of crab pots up here. Such is life. There's so many jellyfish out here today. There's one. So we randomly got like a 5 or 6 knot southerly wind as I'm heading into the marina here. I put the jib back up, I got the main up, and we are cruising along through this crab pot minefield at 2 to 3 knots. So I get to finish my trip with a nice little sail into the harbor. Pulled up the motor for extra speed. All right, another successful trip. Yeah, gonna be a couple weeks till I get back on the boat, but that was a good one. Hopefully my car starts. Beautiful.